Hey, what's up, guys? This is Brian at Whisper Status 74. Welcome to the community. Welcome to the channel. If this is the first time you are seeing me, please consider liking and subscribing. We are real tech for real people. Today will be a tech therapy video about purchasing very high-end displays. I was in a Best Buy the other day, did a video on that in my Best Buy 4K, 8K walkthroughs that I do from time to time. And I saw the Samsung Q900T flagship 8K panel had dropped from $5,000 to a flat $3,000. And that is startling for me in many ways for when to buy, how to buy. And that's typically what we discuss in these tech therapy videos. And we'll talk about it after the intro. Hey, what's up, guys? Thank you so much for joining me today. I will warn you before we even start, these are discussion-based videos. They are extremely long and they are all over the map. They basically mirror a conversation as if we were in a room together. So they're almost in a way kind of a live stream without me being live. I want to talk about this subject, and it's going to be all over the map, as I mentioned, as it has many different aspects to it. It has technology is a communal thing in many ways. We have, which is so great about our platform, is we have people from home theater that can actually discuss their passions. We talked about the Best Buy and the old audio video stores of the past where you could get together in a listening room and talk about the next thing. And but as a whole, or most times, home theater, video games, unless you're playing multiplayer, are something you do alone. Maybe you share that with your family or you have your friends over. For the most part, home theater is something you will enjoy by yourself, and a lot of times that is a decision you're going to have to make alone. And when things go wrong with that decision, or you have buyer's remorse, or we have the fear of missing out, you are not enjoying content because you're looking at enjoying it on something else, or these things can get crushingly lonely, especially when you're purchasing technology or anything material to try to make up for what's lacking in life. We all do that to some extent. Our lives, especially now that we're so isolated and our careers have changed and finances have changed, these pieces of technology are much more important than they've ever been. They keep us company. They pass the time. You're able to catch up on some games. You're watching some shows. Right now, streaming is bigger than ever. And what you watch it on, at least if you're watching me, is so important. So what I want more than anything is for you guys to be completely at peace with your technology, to enjoy your technology, to be content with your technology. I don't care if you buy the very, very high end, or you're buying the lowest end possible. All I care is that you're happy with what you buy. And this is really the basis of today's video. I was in Best Buy the other day. I did a video on that. You can see that video right before this one. They're 4K, 8K walkthroughs that I do in the store. I've done them for the last, I guess, year and a half, where I go in every week to show you what's there, what's not, the inventory, the prices. And I was pretty startled to see that the 2020 Samsung Q900T, which is for all intents and purposes their flagship LED at 8K, at 75 inches was $3,000. Now, its competitor, which was directly behind it, is the 75-inch ZAH from Sony, which is still $4,500. Both panels launched at about $8,000. Obviously in the beginning of 2020, which isn't always true. They don't land January 1st. So they land a few months into the year. We're seeing that now as we are well into 2021. Some panels haven't even launched yet. They're coming out this summer, and then you'll see 2000. So it always feels like things are out longer than they are. At times they're not out as long as you think. So seeing that panel drop so much, for many of you, there's an elation to, oh my God, that's a great buy now. But for those of you that bought that panel, now I know nobody feels bad for that group. And I've been that group. That's why the channel started. Is, for context, my very first 4K TV, I shouldn't say my first was a JS Samsung. My first large size 75-inch was a Vizio P-Series at $4,000. That was a bargain at the time. that panel was rated as, oh my God, look at this, 75 inches. Again, that was 2016. It was a while ago, but just for context. So as I went up the ladder with defective panels, I got up to spending about $9,000. I was just in a bad place trying to buy my way out. And again, the higher end I went, the less sympathy anyone had when things went wrong. Whether, for me, those were defective panels, but what ends up happening is when you buy something like that, and I had, again, defective issues with mine, but you continue to stay online, you continue to look for validation to keep hearing how great they are, to say to yourself, well, this is why I spent so much money. Look at the reviews it's getting. There is a risk to that. The risk is coming across terrible reviews. The risk is to no longer trust your eyes. Now you're trusting what someone like me is saying or what you're reading, which can also come from a place of people that don't like those products because they either can't afford them, or OLED was hated for years, probably mostly because of its price point and then burn-in, obviously. But either way, psychologically, when you make a large purchase, the best thing you can do is just step offline for a while, if you like what you see with your eyes. But the biggest thing is when you see the price fall off a cliff, when you see it drop. Now, to see the Samsung, for a minute, going back to that, and why I mentioned sympathy, is when that price drop happens, and in the video you can see in the comments, people are like, oh, that's awesome, it dropped a lot. But there is a ha-ha for the idiots that bought it at full price. That happens in anything. That happens in cars. That happens in anything you buy, appliances. Things drop. What I don't like within televisions that it dropped that far is you're undercutting your own clientele. You know, you're releasing a Q900A at $7,000 or $8,000. The 85 inch is $10,000. Yet your flagship from the year before at 75 inches drops to $3,000. Not only that, the Q800, which is not even in the same class as the 900, is only $200 difference. To take that a step further, the 65-inch 900T was only $200 or $300 difference. Now, we all know in displays, inches in real estate, as far as the size of the screen, goes from being, for example, the C1 at 77 inches is about $3,000, $3,500. The 83 inch is going to be $6,000. You're going to nearly double the price. So to have those displays that close, if you're somebody that bought that panel, it is going to mess with you. And I guess I thought about it too and saying, man, that's awful. Now, I want things to be as affordable for all of you guys. Where this gets very complicated, though, is when you have your LGs, your GX came in at this price, and now the G1, which is coming out any day now, is the same price as the GX. And then, so what LG is doing is kind of just flooding with every price point, kind of suffocating you and pushing out the Vizio OLED and trying to make it to where they're the one-stop shop for value as well as high-end. Then you have Sony, who has the A80J coming out, the A9G still there. They have various price points as well, but then you have the A90J. Now, this is where we're going to change the conversation a bit. The A90J, releasing at $8,000. Now, the A90J, to me, at least early on, is the best panel this year. It is absolutely stunning. I love the panel. I have no issues with it at all. I think it's fantastic. But at $8,000, you're looking at a 4K panel. This is where it gets complicated. I'm having this discussion in the comments right now. Do you buy 8K or do you buy 4K? Now, if you go with a 4K flagship, which would be the A90J, which is a master series, you're paying for build quality. And also, guys, you have to keep in mind that an 83-inch OLED really didn't exist until this year. And OLEDs typically at 77 were about $15,000. So to have it, but why are they cheaper? In some ways, they're 4K. The LG ZX is $30,000 and $20,000. Now, I know this conversation is going all over the map. That's the point. The thought process is what to buy, when to buy, should I buy? So you buy a Samsung Q900T. That display A Samsung Q90T or a Q90R the year before at 75 inches would have been a bargain at $3,000. What bothers me is it's 8K. You drop the price of an 8K. You're trying to tell people, you're forcing us into buying 8K. And then you're cutting your own clientele's legs off. In some ways, it reminds me of what happened with NVIDIA. They have the 2080s, the 2080 Ti's, these amazing, expensive graphics cards at $2,000. And then you're able to walk around for a year or so saying, I have a 2080 Ti. I have a flagship Q900T, 85 inches, 75 inches. And let's face it, a lot of our hobbies and the things that we love are bragging rights. I would suggest forgoing the bragging rights because they can turn against you rather quickly. And what I mean by that is when you're walking around saying, yeah, I have a 2080 Ti, blah, 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 you should be proud of it. But when you swing it like that, and then a year and a half later, NVIDIA releases a 37 Turing card at $700 that outperforms it, it then goes the other way. Now you're the guy with the expensive card, and I'm the guy that bought a budget card. Now, the funny thing is you're not going to be able to find those cards anywhere anyway. But my point is, if you're somebody who watched yesterday's video that bought that Q900 at $8,000, you see it for $3,000. It just kind of messes with you in the point of, wow, there's still no 8K content. It has one HDMI 2.1. Why did I buy it? Well, when in reality, it's still a gorgeous panel. You are paying for Samsung's processing. You are paying for their build quality. But my advice is when you go very high end and you want to be first, you need to then unplug and know you spent that money and know that it's not going to remain that way forever. The challenge or the problem I have, as I just mentioned, is the fact that it's 8K. It should have held its value longer. Because now you have Samsung's Q90A, their 4K model, right around the same price. You have their Q80s at around that price. You have Hisense dual cell. Speaking of Hisense, absolutely killed it in their press conference or in their release conference. But then you have them kind of coming in at the same price, offering 8K. Now, the 8K thing we talked about many times, I have absolutely no need for it. I'm not looking forward to it. I personally wanted all the issues with 4K sorted out in this way. I wanted blooming taken care of. I wanted brighter OLEDs. We're getting that now. I wanted gaming to catch up. Forget about 8K gaming. You know, I got a Q900R. I have a Q900R. Running PC gaming on it was brutal at 8K. The consoles are struggling to do 4K. Returnals on PS5 is 1080p. Gorgeous. But 8K, now we're just relying on processing. We're relying on up conversion, which we know very rarely ever looks better than native. So back to the Samsung conversation, or anything you buy high end, just know you're buying that for you. And just know that if you have the money to spend on it, you have to kind of be good that you spent it at that moment. That whatever you spent at that moment, its value in terms of money is gone. You're going to just enjoy it. It's yours. But that's why I recommend don't buy things for bragging rights. Don't, like for me, for instance, I was looking at the Z9G. I had an opportunity to buy one from Robert at Value Electronics. And I found that as much as I love the panel, it didn't really fit my needs. But there was a bragging rights thought process. Well, I have a Z9G. It's a Master Series. Well, what happens, and if you have a Z9G or any of these panels, I'm not knocking them, but I'm saying is that for Sony, buying a lot of their 8K panels, they don't do 8K YouTube. So here I am buying a panel, which, yes, it's amazing and it's very, very bright, but you're looking at a $15,000 panel that even me buying it at, would have been like $9,000, you're thinking, wow, this is old technology. In terms of it is 8K, but it can't do 8K, if that makes sense, right? So that's where the Q90 versus Samsung Q900A, that conversation that I'm having in the comments right now is, do you spend $8,000 on a 4K panel? Me, the answer is yes and no. Yes, because the A90J to me is the best TV out this year so far. Absolutely gorgeous. Love the panel. But it is 4K. But I just illustrated for you why I think 8K is still just not necessary, especially being a gamer. We've already seen where 4K really struggles with 2K upscales, with 4K Blu-rays. That's the stuff that we're seeing on streaming is barely 4K. While we're going to jump to 8K, and we know that upscaling can be very noisy. But to try and future-proof yourself and go 8K, that's the whole point of this conversation. Samsung took that from you by dropping the price of the 900T. And you have to be okay with that loss. And that's hard. And you have to be okay with things dropping so rapidly. You know, in the meantime, you have these consoles that nobody can get, and they're still super, super expensive. They're not going to drop. But TVs, especially this year when we can't find them, we can't see them, we can't get them, you guys really want to purchase them, and you need them. And I'm in that situation myself, right? So I have a 55-inch CX behind me. My 77-inch CX was defective. It went back to the store, and now I'm in a holding pattern myself. So just to share what I'm doing and my thought process. I'm in a holding pattern myself. My basement was destroyed in a plumbing issue that we have here. Still happening. Home theater, all that stuff has been taken out. So even if I could get my display back, I have nowhere really to put it. So I'm actually going to wait. Now, the waiting part does torture me because I really don't enjoy gaming on something so small. For me, I even have the 65-inch X90J here from Value Electronics. I like shooting videos for you guys on them, but I don't enjoy that size. I am in the heavyweight division. I have to go up. That's just the way I am. But part of me doesn't want to game. I want to hang back until I have that display. But my 77-inch being defective, I had to hang back throughout the entire time I had it. I didn't enjoy any content on it at all. It had so many issues that I wasted time. I didn't enjoy any of the games that I bought full price. Resident Evil Village is coming out tonight. I'm playing it on this. I have headphones. I'm going to just enjoy my content. But my thought process going into purchasing a display, okay, just to illustrate my thoughts. Sony A80J, possibility. Sony A90J, possibility. LG C1, possibility, as well as the G1. Now, I have those choices that I'm looking at. 77 inches and 83 inches. What I have to factor in is longevity. Also, what fits my personal needs. Nowhere in my mind, though, with those choices is prestige or bragging rights. Even though I have the channel and can say to you guys, yeah, I have an 83-inch A90J, I don't think that way anymore, in the sense of it doesn't really benefit me personally for my own enjoyment. It'll actually take from me. So the A90J is absolutely gorgeous. Even at 8,000, at 83 inches, it is an 83-inch Master Series OLED. I'm not going to say it's a bargain, but it's affordable in the sense of what it is, okay? But it's 4K. For me, 8K is not even in my mind. I am not concerned with it. I don't worry about not being able to game in 8K. We're nowhere near that with these consoles. I'm perfectly happy with 4K. I want the largest, most beautiful, but value-based panel possible. So for me, that's the C1. The G1 at 77 inches is also very attractive, but I'm actually looking at the 83-inch C1. Now, I know it's launching again any day now, but by the time I'm ready to purchase it, and it'll be probably summer by the time my building is all done, it'll be substantially cheaper. But if you listen to my thought process, I'm telling you right off the bat, 8K doesn't matter. So it's off the table. I'm not interested at all in the Q900A for myself. And I want size more than I want the best picture quality. But at the same time, I do want value. I do think the A90J is substantially better than the C1. However, I don't believe it's $2,000 better. And if I'm going to spend $8,000, I know I'm done buying TVs for quite some time. That's the way of breaking down. You can hear me breaking it down myself. Now, being comfortable with that purchase is the point. Being comfortable. Now, having the CX and seeing the rocky road it had all year, I am very confident that I'll be fine with the C1. And I'm happy. There's very little content that I watch on here and say, wow, I wish it was brighter. I wish it was better at this. I wish it was better at that. So it's a comfortable purchase for me. When you get into 8K and you get into the problems they're having with pixel density and penetrating light through the screen, and you have TVs like the Q90A maybe outperforming its own flagship, the Q90R versus the Q900, it just, to me, it's not ready for prime time that way. Seeing TCL and these guys and Hisense release 8K, great for them. However, processing is going to be the most important part of that package. If they don't have, and I know they don't have the processing of LG, Samsung, and Sony, 8K might be a mess for them. We'll see. But for me and my thought process, it's all about making a comfortable choice that you're not going to regret. 20 minutes in, that is the emphasis of this video. That is the feel of this video, is picturing what you want, picturing yourself enjoying it, and saying to yourself, I'm comfortable financially making that choice, and I think I'm going to enjoy it, and I'll get the most use out of it. Thinking what someone else might think is your first mistake. Thinking someone else might say, oh, wow, you know, that thing's a piece of just tune that stuff out. Be confident in your purchase. Obviously, spend well within your means. Do not extend. Don't, because that buyer's remorse never goes away, is really the point here too. Buyer's remorse doesn't change. That only gets worse. If you have sticker shock and buyer's remorse initially, that's only going to get worse as the price goes down, especially if what you're buying doesn't live up to those expectations. And here's the tough part about these things. It took the CX nearly a year to figure itself out. Raised blacks, crawling blacks, the grid pattern that I brought up when it first launched and no one else was talking about. It finally is where it should be a year later. Now, if you paid full price, which I did for this 55-inch, and I paid full price for my 77-inch, by the time these new ones come out and they're cheaper, you're saying to yourself, oh, what the heck? I could have bought it now. You're seeing that with the 900H. The 900H still has not got its HDMI 2.1 variable refresh rate addition or update. And here I am looking at the X90J, its successor, which is already here. So it's dicey, it's hard, but what you need to do is be as comfortable as you possibly can with your purchases. Make them for the right decision. Make them for the right reason, I should say. Make them, I'm losing my focus as my dog is making me nuts in the background. That was a sneak peek into being a small creator who lost their studio, who has to listen to ambient noise outside, dogs. But I have to keep that in just to show you that that's 20 plus minutes that you can just throw away. But again, make sure that that purchase is something you're truly comfortable with in both spending and fitting your needs. But the minute you spend it, the minute you buy something very, very high end, just know there is obsolescence no matter what. Buying that 8K 900T, it's still 8K, it still will be fine for years to come, but buy it for the right reason. You bought it back then because it was the hottest product. You bought it back then because it is a gorgeous display. It's got a gorgeous body to it. It's the best looking display. Its frame. You bought it for its features. None of that has changed. That is all where it was. But being king of the hill, if you're buying anything for that reason, it will be very short-lived. In graphics cards, you may have a year, 2 years, and TVs you have less than a year. If you bought a Master Series display, now I saw this with the Sony A9G, I bumped into so many people that hated me for that panel because I chose the C9 because it was so expensive. And then you saw the Master Series group get very bothered that the AAH came out. And the AAH did outperform it in a few ways, but was much cheaper. And that bothered people. And they get in the comments and they get very defensive and they guard their technology. And they guard, that thing's a piece of garbage. It's nothing compared to my C9 or my C8 or my Sony. And that is fine. You can guard things all you like, but that's a tough place to be. If you're by yourself, angry because of something you spent and something's coming in and eclipsing it. I know, I've been there. I know it's you know, I bought the KS9800 Samsung, and that TV was $12,000 at launch. It was 78 inches. I love to continuously bring it up because it was a panel I could never dream of owning. And as my TVs were failing at the time, the KS9000, the 940E, had all these expensive panels. All of a sudden, the KS9800 dropped to a price that I was not comfortable with. It was $9,500, but it was 78 inches. It was full array. It was my dream display. And in my mind, it's still the best looking TV I've ever seen. You know, it was the first day I had it. I remember being like, oh, it bothered me every second for what I paid for it, especially when there was a blue line down the screen. You can actually see that on this channel. It is the first 3 videos that I did, which I did those videos for Samsung, as a matter of fact, to send them, to show them what was wrong with the panel. Now, if you watch those videos, you can see they absolutely crippled me. I had spent a certain amount of money, and to see it not really turn out the right way, the buyer's remorse ate away. I didn't keep the panel. I had 3 of them, as a matter of fact, and then just went down to a mid-range 900E that many of you are familiar with. But now those are defective panels. That's a different conversation. However, talking about guarding your purchases, talking about this is what I spent, this is what I, you know, you're justifying to yourself. I would spend less. I would hang back. Or unless you have a ton of money, just spend what you want, but don't look back. Don't look back at it. Don't justify it. Just spend it. Enjoy it for what it is. But having that flagship felt so good, and it didn't work out. But had I kept that TV, it is antiquated by today's standards as far as the blooming, its motion handling. And also keep in mind one last thing. When you buy very, very high-end, don't expect them to be thoroughly reviewed. Don't expect, especially something in the 75, 85 inch. You'll have larger websites that will do written articles on them, and they're great and we need them, but you're not going to see many hands-on. So you're not going to always get thorough reviews. You're kind of buying blind in many ways. And the whole point of this entire long blah 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 video is for you guys to be as comfortable as you possibly can with your purchases. You know, the Hisense, that group that's coming in, yes, that's going to nip at these big three. It's going to eclipse them in some ways, you never know. But you have to be confident in the purchases you make. Don't let anything change how you feel about what you buy or make you feel bad about what you buy, whether it's somebody online or somebody in the comments. Don't feel the need to engage and fight. Be confident in what you buy, purchase and love, and be happy with what you buy. Don't let anything take away from it. The things we own end up owning us. So please make educated, sensible purchases, and then don't guard them. Just be happy with them. Turn me off. Enjoy them. But if you buy high-end, know full well you're buying for the prestige. You're buying for the moment. And all you have is the moment before it is no longer the king and before it drops substantially in price, and you have to be okay with that. All right, guys, I know the video was all over the map, nonsensical. Thank you so much for enjoying me. Please consider joining the community and family and subscribing. Thank you so much. Take care.